just was showing a place on Fifth Avenue for our asking price is $11 million. Great outdoor space on Fifth Avenue. And hold on one second, let me see here. There he is. Whoop, not that one. Aubrey, we'll bring you in.
Hello. Hi. It's nice here in the city. We're talking to everyone about big money energy. Oh, look who it is.
What's going on, man?
Sorry, I was a few minutes late. I was with clients in an apartment, and they had to touch everything. I was like, you can't.
At my pad here. Yep.
Nice. I was born in Texas. My sister has a ranch in Austin. And a lot of our New Yorkers who should be buying here are not. And they're all going to Austin with you.
Yeah, it's crazy right now. I mean, everybody's moving here to Austin. I've been here 25 years, so I love it, and I still love it, and I'm going to continue to love it. But it's just interesting how much energy it has with people coming here right now.
Now, did you start on it in Austin?
I did. Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about that process and what led you to create what would eventually become such a huge brand, and a kind of instigator for living a better lifestyle?
Yeah. Honestly, On It is the culmination of everything that I wish existed, but I couldn't find up to my own, satisfaction. So
Sure.
I was taking a lot of supplements. My stepmother was a nutritional doctor for a lot of Pat Riley's teams. So it was Lakers in the 80s, Knicks in the 90s, Heat in the 2000s. I was a basketball player myself. So she always had a stack of supplements for game day, and she had a stack of supplements for test day. So this was like part of my life. But I was always a big ass stack for one simple thing. Like, I want my brain switched on. I have a whole paper towel worth of stuff. And as I grew older, I learned the recipe to that paper towel. And I started to understand all these different things, but it wasn't convenient. I was like, we could put all of these ingredients in a single formula, and then I could just take that formula and bring it with me wherever I wanted to go without having to travel with a supplement suitcase. So I started to see the need for things. And then really with all my friends, Joe Rogan and all the people in the MMA community, seeing the unconventional fitness side of things, and just really realizing that there's a lot of tools that aren't easy to access, like clubs and maces. And kettlebells were actually on their way, but they're, the battle ropes and the Bulgarian bags, the different things that we could add to a training repertoire. So I just wanted to put it all together, and all the different, functional foods, like protein bars that aren't just a couple ingredients that aren't that good for you. We got 60 plants in our protein bars. So it's just things that I wish existed, and that fortunately other people absolutely love as well. So that's been really the secret. I just make stuff for me, and it just so happens that other people want to buy it.
Isn't it crazy to think that everything you just talked about, which now seems so commonplace, in most gyms and in the fitness community, at one point was not? Like, that you used to walk in the gym and there was no battle ropes in the corner. There were no kettlebells. People were just like, weights, treadmill, elliptical, and maybe a bike.
Yeah. And some machines, with really fixed movement patterns. And really what, a lot of I think the ideal changed. There was the Schwarzenegger years, and then it was all about bodybuilding. It was all about physique. How do you look? And then I think I can really tag it to the movie 300, when there was all, Leonidas, Gerard Butler, all of the out at a gym called Jim Jones, and they were doing all of this unconventional training there. And I think people started to shift their idea of what they wanted, and athletes have been doing it the whole time, because you can't, lift fixed plane bench press if you plan on moving somebody off you, because that person's going to move. You need to move from different angles. You need rotational strength. So it all shifted.
It's crazy. I remember seeing that movie. So many scenes in that movie are so classic. And I feel like after that movie came out, more and more, especially guys, were going into the gym. Because the whole movie was just like, dude, this is what you could become. It was nuts. What what is the best piece of advice you have for somebody who kind of has a passion and wants to turn that into a real business? Because that's what you've done between On It and between, the book and everything else that you do. You've taken something that you actually love, which I think is really, really hard for most people, and turned it into a bit like a huge, huge business and lifestyle brand. Do you have anything to say to the people out there that are trying to do the same thing, maybe especially now post-COVID, thinking, you know what, now is the best time to
so that you authentically live, eat, breathe, whatever you're trying to sell. Like you're all the way in. And that's super, super important. And we don't see that all the time. It seems like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense, but it's not. Someone will design a widget. They'll design some way to hold a corn on the cob, but they don't even like corn. It's like, what are you doing? You're creating this thing. You'll never be the right person for it. And I think, so that's a really important place to start. And then, picking your allies really carefully.
True.
I think I was really blessed that, Joe Rogan was the ally that I went into with this, because he's not only someone who had reach and influence, but he was known for authentically speaking about a variety of different things, including fitness and including his own health. And the difference between being with someone like Joe Rogan, or for example, another one of the On It fans, Ludacris, who arguably has an even bigger reach than Joe Rogan in many ways.
Sure.
But the difference between Rogan posting about supplements or Ludacris posting about supplements is not even in the same stratosphere, because people know Ludacris for singing music, and he's an amazing artist. And he's actually really savvy when it comes to health and fitness, but people don't know that. So they don't listen to him. So if you're starting a company and you know somebody has a lot of influence, but they're not known for that market, they're not going to be as effective. You got to get with someone who has an audience that is listening to them for what they're talking about. And I think that's another key thing, is selecting the right allies.
That's awesome. That's great advice. Actually, I think people select the wrong partners, let alone allies, all the time, because they're looking for short-term gains. Like, well, I'll go with the person that has money that'll help me out, or they just use it for the wrong reasons. But that is huge. What's something that you would do different? Is there anything that you do different if you were starting over again or building your company again?
You learn every step of the way. And one of the biggest lessons is, and one of the biggest mistakes I made is, sometimes you'll hire somebody or you'll work with somebody and they'll have a certain amount of leverage because of the skill set that you believe is irreplaceable, but they're really not the right person. They're just not the right person, but you think that you need them. And so it takes you way, way longer to let them go than you should. And there's a saying that I really like: it's better to have a hole than an asshole, right? So it's like, it's better to have a gap in what you're able to do in your company and try and fill it the best way you can, than to have somebody filling that role who's just not the right culture, not the right person.
Where's my pen? I'm going to write that down. My team who's listening to this, can you please write that down and remind me of that, please, Puma and crew? I love that line. That's huge. I want to talk to you for a second also about energy. So something that's really, really big in my life is figuring out how to control your energy, and not just through supplements, right? Mm-hmm. Not just, through caffeine, et cetera. Because when I first came to New York, and I was from Texas, grew up outside Boston, moved to New York to do theater. That didn't work out. And then I had to get into real estate to pay my bills versus becoming a bartender or a waiter. And I realized pretty quickly that my energy is what I told the whole world, whether I knew it or not. Right. I wrote a book called Big Money Energy that just came out, and in it there are a handful of codes that I put out, and one of the codes reminds me of you a lot, where it's when you can't change your circumstances, there's one thing you can't change, which is your energy. And I feel like for total human optimization and everything that you do, can you talk to us a little bit just about how to harness your own energy and how you feel about energy,
Yeah.
and how that plays a role in mindset and overall well-being?
People take you at your own estimation of yourself, and there's no way to fake it. Like some people can be fooled. You can trick them, and
Yeah,
trick them by putting on the show, like theater, like you're talking about. Like, I'm going to play the character that has big
yeah,
money energy. But
yeah,
it's different. It's different when you really have it. It's different when it's really, really there, and you don't have to burn that energy trying to project some artifice, some avatar of who you really are and what you're really feeling. So the key is to go down to the root and make it authentic, make that energy really real. And that, I think, requires some heavier lifting, some deeper work. There's no hacks for that. But ultimately, I think one of the big key things that I've learned is just to find the way to believe in yourself, like really, really to believe in yourself. You look at some of the champion fighters, you look like at Conor McGregor in his prime or Mike Tyson in his prime. I mean, he believed in himself so much that the other people looking across at the stare down were like, oh shit, he is 100% certain that he is going to knock me out. How work? And I think that's something that's really important. Like, we start to build that legitimate, authentic confidence when we know we've been putting in the hours, when we've been doing everything that we can to put ourselves in the optimal position, to make ourselves better. And if we know that we've outworked everybody else, we're going to believe in ourselves. And that confidence is going to be authentic. And that's going to exude this kind of magnetic energy.
yeah, that is so true of, I think, every major athlete. Even I don't even remember when it was, but like Tiger Woods, right, would talk about, playing like he's already got the win in his pocket,
Yeah.
right? So that way it removes the stress and the pressure from that, that one hit, because he's got to keep his arms calm. Um, and or it's, I mean, look at the Super Bowl, right? It's like Tom Brady, like what the fuck, like insane, right?
Yeah.
Completely insane. But you go back to all the interviews, and he's
To get you there for real.
Did you think, and it's just like reinforces as I talk to you, that 20 years ago you wouldn't just start a company, but you'd really start a movement? Because I think you've inspired and motivated so many people around the world who maybe they know you from the podcast, maybe they know you from the supplements, the protein bars, but you've really created this I don't know a better word for it, man. I'd like a total movement. Does that feel overwhelming to you ever? That so many people kind of follow your every move and what you say, and like gospel.
It's interesting, I think in some ways it's a bit of a trick question based on what we were just talking about.
Sure.
Of course I believed that this is where I was going to be. If I didn't, I don't think I would have got here.
Yeah,
And
it's
honestly,
too hard.
a big challenge in my journey was when I wasn't getting anywhere, when I was 30 and on it, you know, hadn't even started yet. It was just an idea in my mind, and I really hadn't felt, I didn't have my podcast yet, and I was like, what the hell am I doing? What is wrong? I saw in my head that I was supposed to be somewhere far different than where I actually was. And I was like, I went left when I should have gone right, and I don't know where I missed that turn, but I'm not in the place that I still believe that I'm just getting started, So The challenging part is to, not put that timeline on and say, oh yeah, by 30 I should have been here. Just because Alexander the Great conquered the known world at 25, doesn't mean I'm a loser if I'm 30 and haven't done anything yet. And it doesn't matter if you're 40, 50, 60, whatever. It's never too late. But yes, I've always believed that this was the place where I was going to end up. Now that said, does it occasionally get overwhelming? Of course, because as soon as you put yourself out in the forefront, you have to be willing to receive praise and also take some arrows. That's
Sure.
what any leader is going to do, is step out. I share my truth as radically as I can. Some people are going to some people are going to love it. And some people are going to just line up their crossbow bolts and be like, oh, great, let's take this guy down, So
Just
you have
like
to be
in
ready to follow
300.
it. Exactly.
Yeah. You just said something that rings really, really true to what I talk to people about a lot. And I apologize, but we are underneath, I think, the hospital on the FDR. So we're here. Look at that. There you go. New York right there. About having a really clear picture, or as clear as you possibly can today, of who you want to be in the future, and then working for that person. I think it goes along with goal setting. But how do you feel about setting goals? Are you somebody who says you got to stay flexible, figure it out, or do you really, really feel like you got to set goals and don't negotiate with them?
I'm more in the former camp, where I'm a lot more flexible, actually too flexible. So I think it's a growth area for me to get a little bit more specific with my goals. I recently interviewed Stephen Kotler, who wrote a recent book called The Art of Impossible. And there's actually clinical research showing that when you do set very clear goals, you're up to 20% more effective in anything that you're intending. And I was like, well, I'm not really doing that well, because I set very clear intentions, so my intentions don't have a clear goal. And I think in some cases that's important, because you want to surrender to the process rather than being beholden to this idea of what the external validation and result of your process might be. A great person who taught me that was Bodie Miller, the Olympic skier. And his intention was to ski the mountain in the best way that it could be skied. He didn't give a shit if he won or lost. He was going to ski the best he could possibly fucking ski, period. And it didn't matter. And he was stoked if he did that, whether he won or lost. And he was bummed if he didn't do that, whether he won or lost. And I've seen both. I've seen him win the gold medal and be bummed because he's like, man, I took the conservative line. That mountain could have been skied better. I was like, dude, you won. He's like, I don't care. And I've seen the other one, where he's like, he crashed at the last turn and he was like, man, I was ripping up there. That was perfect. And I think there is some beauty to that. Yeah. And
mindset called Parkinson's law that says that you will complete any task in the amount of time that you set for yourself to complete that task. And it will take you that amount of time, no little or no more. Meaning, like, if you say, all right, this is what I'm gonna go do that thing, I have until Friday at noon, and you hold yourself to it, you will get it done by Friday at noon. But if you say you have until the end of the month, other things are going to pop up. That task all of a sudden is going to swell, and it's going to take you exactly to the end of the month. And thank goodness I had until the end of the month. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to get it done. Yeah. And it's amazing the way our mind works when it comes to taking action, right? And being an action taker instead of an action thinker. It's wild once you really start to really go down the rabbit hole. We start talking about this almost too much.
The CEO of Onnit now, obviously I relinquished my CEO role this year after holding that post for 10 years. And he always says, something
congratulations, by the way.
Thank you, brother. He says something very similar. And he says it with such a sense of calm, even when we have some monumental task and the team's working on something, he'll always say, it will get done because it has to get done. So don't worry about it. It's going to get done because it has to get done. And it always does. Yep. It always does.
Yep. Always. what last question I want to ask you, and then I'll let you go. Go back to being awesome in Austin. Oh, that sounds like that should be a t-shirt. It's probably a t-shirt. Yeah. There's a bunch of these questions that have been popping up. People really want to know how you handle pain, how you pick yourself up after failure, how you pick yourself up after loss. It's like 19 people ask the same thing. So that seems like the question.
This is something, oftentimes we get stuck in this idea that it shouldn't have been this way. And that's, I think, where we get a lot of the suffering that comes from. It shouldn't have been this way. It should have worked. I should have won. This should have. And we're projecting our expectations upon the universe as if we are the divine soothsayer of all things and we know best what should have happened and what shouldn't have happened. We don't. And there's always going to be something that comes up. So it's really accepting the reality as quickly as possible. This happened. Yeah. Okay, now here's my choice. What do I want to do with this happen? Do I want to lament it, or do I want to choose the path that this will make me stronger? I will learn from this and that has adapted from this setback. And sometimes you don't even know it. I mean, I think a classic example of that is I got in a really strange car accident where I was driving out of my gate. This is a couple of years ago. Yeah. Driving out of my gate. I've never passed out in my whole life, not even when I was, sparring heavily and training in MMA and boxing and heavyweights would hit me. I still never lost consciousness. For whatever reason, the last thing I remember was sipping my sparkling water around noon on a weekday and lost consciousness, accelerated into a guardrail. Woke up after the jaws of life were prying me out and in the hospital, and my face was completely mangled. I still have pretty gnarly scars and some dead teeth. But the very moment, for whatever reason, partly because of my understanding of this, the very moment I came to, I said, even when I called my partner at the time, I was like, I'm so sorry. I know I don't know what happened, but I'm so sorry that I did this to myself. But I know that this happened for me. I just don't know why yet. And just be patient, and I'll find out why. But I know this happened for me, and I it took me a long time to figure that out, and I'm still figuring it out to a certain degree, right? But that faith, I've been carried with that faith the whole time. So when I bite an apple and my tooth hurts, or when I get those phantom tingling pains in my face, I don't say that shouldn't have. Why did that happen? Oh my! How could that have happened? If I would have just waited 5 more minutes, then I wouldn't have been driving, and I would have passed out on my couch instead of the car. That's all just more pain, more suffering. But I just continue to choose over and over. This happened for me. And I'm figuring out little reasons why it happened for me all the time. And eventually that whole picture. But hell, even if I go to the end of my life and I'm on my deathbed and I'm like, why did that accident happen? I don't know. I'll figure it out. But it happened for me. So what? I've still lived in a way that's, prevented me from so much of the suffering that I could have engaged in.
Damn. That's a great answer. That's a great answer. Last question. Your podcast is so awesome and huge, and I know there's a lot of people who listen to it. How's it going? What's your podcast life look like for 2021?
It's fire. I'm the conversations that I have lined up.
Yeah.
I mean, end of 2020 was phenomenal. There's Joe Dispenza, Matthew McConaughey, some great shows with Peter Crone, which were phenomenal. There was a lot of great shows, but 2021 is looking incredible. I mean, really some of the very top guests the top people who I'd ever want to have a conversation with on the planet are starting to, become available. And so I'm stoked. I mean, definitely keep a lookout for some of the things we have coming up.
Listen, man, you are awesome. You founded On It, which is huger than huge. New York Times bestselling author of Own the Day, and host of the Aubrey Marcus podcast, amongst all the other things that you do. Thank you so much for doing this and enlightening us for just about half an hour. You're the best. Everybody should go get Aubrey's book, go get his podcast, Lead the Life. I'll let you go. Enjoy Austin, man.
You too, brother. Enjoy New York, man. It was great to connect with you.
All right. See ya.
All right. Take care.